Chilling Reign is the 6th mainline Pokemon Sword and Shield set. It's also one that has a special place in my heart. I started playing the Pokemon trading card game just before the release of Chilling Reign, and on the week it came out, I bought a booster box. It's still the only booster box I've ever gotten, and thus started my spiral into Pokemon TCG insanity. And on top of that, this is a really strong set with a lot of playable cards. I'm Jet from inthirdperson.com. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's showcase the best cards from Chilling Reign. Out of the gate, Shadow Rider Calyrex VMAX was the it card of the set, thanks to its Underworld Door ability, allowing you to attach energy and draw 2 cards. And this was once per Calyrex, so if you had multiple VMAXs on the board, you could use the ability to attach multiple energies, which powered up the Max Geist move, which did increasingly bigger damage based on the amount of energy on the board. At the time, this card was an absolute nightmare. You would pair this with Gengar Mimikyu GX, and that had a GX move that pretty much made your opponent skip a turn, and which gave Shadow Rider Calyrex enough time to build up enough energy to do massive damage on the following turn. In recent times, it has kind of fallen out of rotation. Not fallen out of rotation, that's the wrong word. It's definitely not as prominent as it used to be because it doesn't ramp up as fast as the current meta needs it to. And on top of that, the deck lost Gengar Mimikyu to rotation. However, in Expanded, this is still one of the best decks in the game. And in standard format, there's a ton of fun ways to play Shadow Rider Calyrex, whether you're doing that with Mewtwo, Arceus, Deoxys, and so on. There's also the League Battle deck now, and this is still a pretty good pickup if you are looking for a strong deck out of the gate. Ice Rider Calyrex was actually a bit of a late bloomer. Its move Max Lance was very good. It let you hit for up to 250 damage and knock out a Pokemon V, but it didn't really get its time to shine until Brilliant Stars, where V-Star Pokemon showed up and they had a max HP of 280, and you throw a Choice Belt on Ice Rider Calyrex and it could one-hit KO V-Stars, no problem. Now, going forward, that's going to be a bit of an issue as Regigigas V-Star is coming out. It's got 300 HP. We've also seen other damage modifiers such as Gardevoir, Radiant Gardevoir, as well as V-Guard energy. However, Ice Rider Calyrex definitely had a strong run as one of the best VMAXs in the game. Blissey V was also a bit of a late bloomer. It didn't really find its footing until Miltank arrived on the scene, which allowed Blissey to stall for time against other V decks while it built up its energy. Pair this up with some healing options and Radiant Greninja to discard energy, and Blissey V has been a terror for quite some time now. Galarian Moltres V is a card that we don't really see much anymore, but for a time, this was an incredibly popular card. With its Dire Flame Wings ability, allowing it to attach energy from the discard pile to itself, it was really easy to pull off the Aura Burn attack for 190 damage. And yes, you take 30 damage to yourself, but 190 damage is really solid damage. Knock out a Crobat, a Lumineon, put a Choice Belt on there, and you're knocking out Pokemon V as well. In particular, at the peak of Mew VMAX's powers in the Fusion Strike era, Galarian Moltres V was very much a counter to that. Beedrill is, I keep saying these late bloomer cards, but we're seeing a lot here where its Persist Sting ability allows it to knock out any Pokemon that has a special energy with only 1 grass energy. The problem with this card was that it is a stage 2 Pokemon. However, the answer we always had, it came out in Chilling Reign, where the Single Strike Mustard card, if it's the last card in your hand, you play Mustard, you can put the Beedrill down without having to evolve all the way up. It just took players time to figure out that this was a play that was possible, as well as seeing Pokemon use more special energy, and at the time it was Arceus that players were teching for. But this is not a bad solution in the Silver Tempest era with Lugia and Mew running around as well. Rapid Strike Malamar is a card that has haunted me since I started playing this game, and it's move Rapid Strike Tentacles for only 1 psychic energy, does 40 damage for each Rapid Strike card you reveal from your hand, and then you shuffle all those cards back in. And this is a card that can do that can one-hit KO anything in the game, and when you pair this with the Shady Dealings engine, you are hitting for massive damage every turn. It's kind of fallen out of favor, especially in the world of Lost Box decks with like Sableye and stuff, but Malamar is one of the strongest archetypes of the Sword and Shield era that it's kind of weird because of the way that it works. You almost don't care what your opponent's doing. You're just kind of playing solitaire with yourself, trying to build a fat hand of Rapid Strike cards, and then you kind of had the potential to beat anything in the game. Oh, this sad boy right here. Sobble, Rapid Strike Sobble, became the Sobble of choice for Shady Dealings decks because of its Keep Calling move. For 1 colorless energy, you search your deck for up to 3 basic Rapid Strike Pokemon and put them onto your bench. This is oftentimes used for just more Sobbles, but in other Rapid Strike decks, such as Rapid Strike Urshifu, you could also get an Urshifu down and then can evolve it on the next turn, even if you didn't play it during your turn. This is definitely the Sobble you want. As if there weren't already enough good Inteleon cards in Pokemon, Rapid Strike Inteleon gives you the quick shooting ability, which lets you add 2 damage counters to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Manaphy didn't stop this, Bench Barrier Mew didn't stop this, and that extra 20 damage can add up, especially if you had multiple Rapid Strike Inteleons in your deck. Now, in recent times, players have shied away from quick shooting Inteleon. They'll either opt to go with the Shady Dealings Inteleon or just Zigzagoon to compensate for the damage, but this was a very good card for a very long time, and it's still pretty good to have at least one of in your Shady Dealings deck. Blaziken VMAX is a card that saw a little bit of play here and there, especially in Rapid Strike decks where its Max Blaze move could accelerate energy to the bench from the discard pile. It didn't do a lot of damage though, so that was a big problem with the card, but there were definitely times where Blaziken paired with Zeraora over here were terrorizing the format, because Zeraora would follow up after Blaziken. You put down the Tower of Waters, and then you use the Crossfist move where Zeraora hits the active for 100 and then also hits the bench for 160. Metagross VMAX is an interesting one. It has the move Max Rush, which does 100 damage, and during your next turn, this Pokemon's Max Rush attack does 150 more damage. It only goes up once, so it can hit for up to 250 damage, and then also being able to search for cards put into your hand is really handy. This is oftentimes built as a quad deck where you only have Metagrosses just attacking over and over again. I never actually got a chance to play this deck, but I know that there are some people who still love this deck to this day. Galarian Zapdos V is a interesting card because it has a really cool ability. Fighting Instinct helps lower the attack cost of this card depending on the number of Pokemon V your opponent plays, and so oftentimes you'd pull this out and then you could hit for 170 damage with only 1 fighting energy. And this card tends to come out when there are big Pokemon that you want to take out that are weak to fighting, such as an Arceus V-Star and stuff like that. So Galarian Zapdos V, even now we kind of see a little bit of play here and there in like Lost Box decks and stuff. So Galarian Zapdos V has kind of done okay for itself. Cast form was funny. There are multiple cast forms in this set, all of which kind of work together, and they all had the ability Weather Reading. If you have 8 or more stadium cards in your discard pile, ignore all energy in this Pokemon's attack cost. So you're trying to discard 8 stadiums, put them in so that they could attack for free, and they did decent damage. Now, the weird thing is this came out at a time when we didn't really have a lot of discarding cards. I think Ultra Ball will help this a lot. And at this point, no one's really playing Cast Form. I've tried to build a modern version of the Cast Form deck. It hasn't worked out too well for me, but I'd love to see this come back someday. Frostlass is a card that allows you to accelerate water energy to another one of your Pokemon. I think this was kind of meant to be the Ice Rider tech, and I know that some people have made videos showing Ice Rider with the Frostlass, but this never really caught on as players were mostly relying on Melanie instead. Galarian Articuno is a weird one. You discard, it has an ability that lets you discard 2 cards in exchange for 1 card. It seems like a bad value proposition there, but in certain decks that you want to discard a bunch of cards, such as a V-Union deck, Galarian Articuno isn't that bad. Gardevoir from Chilling Reign is kind of a cool card. It's got the ability Shining Arcana, where you look at the top 2 cards, and if you get energy in those top 2 cards, you can attach them to your Pokemon in any way you like. And it's got the move Brainwave, where the more energy that Gardevoir has, the stronger its attack. Kind of works like a draw engine while also hitting pretty hard. This one never really got beyond Rogue tier status, but it's a ton of fun to play. Shadow Rider Calyrex's best friend is Cresselia. If your Shadow Rider deck is going second, you want Cresselia in the active to then attach that energy for Crescent Glow and then attach 3 more energy onto the Shadow Rider on the bench. I've also used this for other Psychic decks. In particular, I made a Deoxys deck that features the same sort of strategy, and it's a really nice way to get Psychic energy on the board. Passimian is the best friend of Rapid Strike Urshifu. This allowed your Rapid Strike Pokemon's attacks to do 30 more damage to your opponent's benched Pokemon V. This feels very specific, but when you have Rapid Strike Urshifu and you do Gmax Rapid Flow and you've got Passimian on the bench and it's equipped with Telescopic Sight, you are upping the damage from 120 to 180, which allowed you to knock out 2 Pokemon, like 2 Crobats and get 4 prizes right away. If you had 2 damaged VMAXs, 180 damage might be enough to knock out both, and you take 6 prizes in 1 turn. That's nuts. The supporter and the trainer lineup in Chilling Reign is absolutely nuts. For example, Avery. This was a card that didn't see a lot of play in the past and has definitely picked up more in modern times. This lets you draw 3 cards and force your opponent's bench down to 3 Pokemon. This does hurt now, but this actually hurt most in the Chilling Reign era as a tech against Eternatus. If Eternatus had to go from 8 Pokemon on the bench down to 3, that was a massive problem for Eternatus, which was one of the most popular decks at the time. So even now, Avery is maybe not working to its full potential as Eternatus isn't really played all that much. It is still a handy card for reducing bench size for whatever reason, whether that is, making Palkia hit less or getting rid of stuff on the Lugia bench, or even, Regigigas. Getting rid of the Regis on the board this card's amazing for that as well. Echoing Horn is a cheeky tech that allows you to put a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile back onto their bench. And you might be wondering, why would I want to put more Pokemon on my opponent's bench? There are a couple of ways in which this helps. There are attackers such as Palkia or Suicune that do more damage when there are more Pokemon on the board, and this can allow you to squeeze in an extra 20 damage to get that KO. But also, it's mostly used these days as a way of gusting up a Pokemon V and then bringing that V into the active, taking 2 free prizes in scenarios where you just can't knock out the active. So this is kind of a way of getting around them to get the win. Flannery is a card that has seen some play in control decks. It allows you to discard a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon and discard a stadium in play. Again, it's a very niche ability, but there are decks that absolutely love having this in their arsenal. Fog Crystal is a busted card, being able to search for basic Psychic Pokemon or basic Psychic Energy. If you are playing a Psychic deck of any sort, you're going to want 4 of these in your deck. Karen's Conviction hasn't seen a lot of play, but it's a staple in the Arceus Duraludon deck, which lets you do 20 more damage for each prize your opponent has taken. And if you're playing this at the end of the game, Duraludon can scale up to get massive one-hit KOs on V-Stars or V-Maxes with this. Clara is another card that kind of found its footing a little later on in life. thanks to its ability to get 2 Pokemon from your discard pile into your hand, or 2 basic energy from your discard into your hand. This paired best with Galarian Moltres, Baby Moltres, where you would knock out a Mew VMAX with the Moltres the first time, then you play Clara, and you get the Moltres and the energy back, and you put it down, and then the Moltres would charge 2 energy by itself. Such a killer combo, and one of the coolest cards in the game. Melanie, the Ice Queen herself, is a pivotal card in the Sword and Shield era, being able to attach a water energy from your discard to one of your Pokemon V, as well as draw 3 cards. A lot of water decks, this is a staple card, but even if you're not a water deck, Arceus V-Star plays this. Vikavolt Regieleki plays this. It's just a great way of drawing more cards and accelerating energy. Old Cemetery is a card that has seen play here and there, which makes non-psychic Pokemon take 20 damage each time an energy is attached to them. This was a card that was used in Mew VMAX here and there, a little bit in Jolteon, and any deck that wanted incremental damage to the opponent or itself, Old Cemetery was really good for that. Here we have quite possibly the single most important stadium in the Sword and Shield era, Path to the Peak. This is a card that has warps the meta entirely, where Pokemon with a rule box in play have no abilities. At the time, this was the Eternatus killer, where it would stop Eternatus from expanding its bench up to 8, but this also really hurt decks like Shadow Rider Calyrex, later on Mew VMAX. But it's weird, it hurts Mew VMAX, but now Mew VMAX is the one that uses Path to the Peak the most. I don't understand the meta sometimes. But yeah, Path to the Peak is a staple card in many decks. And if you are playing a deck that relies on abilities, you need to be absolutely horrified of Path to the Peak and have options to get this card out of play. For V-Union decks, Peonia is a incredibly helpful card. It lets you grab 3 cards from your prizes and then put 3 cards from your hand back into your prizes. This was a way to save V-Union pieces from the prizes, but it wasn't a guarantee, as you couldn't see the cards in advance. So its use is kind of limited, but it did see some play here and there. Peony is a card that has seen a little bit of play, most recently in the Zoro Box Arcanine build, where you want to discard all of the cards and bring it down to 2 so that Arcanine can attack with 0 energy, or 0 cards in hand, where it can attack for, I think it's 160 damage for no energy. But there were other decks at the time that were fine with whittling down their deck to just the 2 cards that they want, and Peony was there for that. Lucky Energy is a card that saw a little bit of play in a Blissey V deck, where you could draw extra cards when you got hit. Spiral Energy didn't really get used by anything other than Rapid Strike Malamar. However, it was an amazing card in Rapid Strike and Malamar, not because it provided a specific energy type or anything, but because it was a Rapid Strike card. You could use Octillery to fish this out of your deck anytime you wanted. And last but not least, this is technically a card that originated in Vivid Voltage. However, Chilling Reign also released the Gold Snorlax, and personally, this is still my chase card, and one of these days, I want to own this card in my collection because Snorlax is my favorite Pokemon, and I think this card would be amazing to have. I've had opportunities to grab it. I know in Canada it sells for about $100. I'm not quite ready to blow that kind of money on one card, but maybe someday I will. Maybe someday. We'll see. And with that concludes our look at Chilling Reign. Still a personal favorite set of mine, largely because it's the set that I started with when I started playing the Pokemon trading card game. Also because I'm still chasing that shiny Snorlax, and I hope to get that someday. But before we go, quick question for you. What was the set that was out? What was the latest set when you started playing the Pokemon trading card game? Let me know in the comments. And while you do that, I've got to get going. So before we go, some quick plugs. You can find me on all the things: YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram at In Third Person. You can find me on Twitch at In Third Person, where I play the Pokemon trading card game every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Would love to interact with you live. And check out the website, inthirdperson.com, for more articles and videos on video games, board games, and other nerdy pursuits. Up next, we will be looking at... I haven't actually looked at the list, and I should do a preview. I know we're like halfway done the series. The set that is up next is... Let me go back to the screen. What is it? It is... Shelly Rain's here. Evolving Skies. Oh man, Evolving Skies is going to be a fantastic set to cover because that one has a ton of killer cards from a collector standpoint and a playability standpoint as well. All right, so we'll do that on the next one. But until then, thank you so much for watching. My name is Jet, and we're out of here. Later. Can I find my outro screen? It's over here. Bye.